HOA Karen damaged sports sprinklers, fined $150,000 and repaired them. The sprinklers erupted in a geyser of chaos, spraying water like a fountain gone rogue, flooding the pristine soccer field where kids dreamed of glory. Karen stood there, arms crossed, her smirk as sharp as the shattered sprinkler heads at her feet. She'd declared war on the community's pride, and oh, how she'd pay for it. It all started on a blistering Saturday in Oak Ridge, a tidy suburban enclave where the HOA ruled with an iron grip. I'm Marcus, the volunteer coach for the Oak Ridge Owls, our local youth soccer team. That field was our sanctuary, lush, green, and meticulously maintained. It was where kids like my son, Jamal, found joy and purpose. But Karen, the HOA's self-appointed enforcer, had other plans. She'd always had a vendetta against messy community spaces, claiming they lowered property values. That morning, she'd stormed onto the field, her designer sunglasses glinting, and demanded we cancel practice because the sprinklers were too loud. I tried reasoning with her calmly. At first, Karen, the sprinklers run on a timer. They're off in 10 minutes. Her response, a scoff and a threat to fix it herself. By noon, the field was a swamp. Karen, in her infinite wisdom, had taken a wrench to the sprinkler system, claiming she'd adjust it to stop the noise. Instead, she'd snapped 3 sprinkler heads clean off, unleashing torrents of water that turned the turf into a muddy quagmire. Parents gasped as their kids slipped and fell during drills, the field now a slick, unusable mess. I confronted her, my voice shaking with barely contained rage. Karen, you've ruined the field. This is where our kids play. She shrugged, her voice dripping with disdain. Maybe if you'd listened, I wouldn't have had to step in. The audacity burned hotter than the summer sun. The damage wasn't just cosmetic. The field's drainage system couldn't handle the deluge, and the turf replaced just last year at a cost of $80,000 began to peel up like cheap carpet. Practices were canceled, and the kids' faces fell as they trudged off, their cleats caked in mud. Parents whispered furiously, and I felt the weight of their expectations. As coach, I'd promised them a season of growth, not a canceled one. Karen, meanwhile, strutted back to her pristine McMansion, oblivious to the havoc she'd wrought. The community's anger simmered over the next week. At the HOA meeting, I stood up, my hands trembling as I held up photos of the ruined field. This isn't just a field, I said, my voice cracking. It's where our kids learn teamwork, resilience, and dreams. Karen destroyed it because she didn't like the noise. The room erupted in murmurs, but Karen, seated in the front row, rolled her eyes. You're being dramatic, she snapped. It's just grass. I'll pay for a gardener. Her nonchalance was gasoline on a fire. Parents shouted, demanding accountability. The HOA president, a timid man named Gerald, promised an investigation, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Karen's influence ran deep. Then came the twist no one saw coming. Enter Mrs. Delgado, a quiet retiree who'd lived in Oak Ridge longer than most of us. She rarely spoke at meetings, but that night she stood, her frail frame trembling with resolve. I have something to say, she began, pulling out her phone. The room fell silent as she played a video grainy but unmistakable. It showed Karen, wrench in hand, attacking the sprinklers like a woman possessed, muttering about teaching them a lesson. Gasps filled the room. Mrs. Delgado had been walking her dog that morning and caught the whole thing on her security app. I didn't want to get involved, she said softly. But this is wrong. The crowd roared, and Karen's face turned ashen. Her smug facade crumbled under the weight of undeniable evidence. The video changed everything. The HOA couldn't ignore it, and neither could the town. The field's destruction wasn't just a local issue, it was a public scandal. Parents posted Mrs. Delgado's video online, and it spread like wildfire, racking up thousands of views. Comments poured in typical Karen behavior. She needs to pay. The local news picked it up, dubbing it Sprinklergate. Karen's name became synonymous with entitlement, and her pristine reputation as HOA queen began to crack. The tension peaked at a town hall meeting 2 weeks later. The field was still unusable, and the Owls had to cancel their first game of the season. I stood at the podium, facing a packed room of parents, neighbors, and even some curious reporters. Explosive climax. Karen, flanked by her husband, tried to deflect blame, claiming the sprinklers were faulty and she was just inspecting them. But the evidence was ironclad, and the crowd wasn't having it. When the repair estimate came in $154,000 for new turf, sprinklers, and drainage fixes, the room turned hostile. "You did this," Karen shouted Maria, a single mom whose daughter lived for soccer. "You took their joy away," Karen tried to interrupt, but the boos drowned her out. The town council, pressured by the public outcry, voted unanimously to fine Karen the full $150,000 and mandate that she oversee the repairs personally. Karen's world unraveled. The fine wiped out her savings, and the community's scorn was relentless. Neighbors shunned her, and her HOA allies distanced themselves, unwilling to be tainted by her actions. She tried to appeal the fine, hiring a flashy lawyer who argued vandalism wasn't her intent, but the judge wasn't swayed, intent or not. "Your actions caused significant harm," he said, slamming the gavel. Karen was ordered to pay and to volunteer 200 hours coordinating the field's restoration, shoveling dirt, laying sod, and testing sprinklers under the watchful eyes of the very community she'd wronged. The kids, including Jamal, watched from the sidelines, their cheers for the workers a stark contrast to their glares at her. The repair process was grueling. Karen, unused to manual labor, struggled under the summer heat, her designer clothes streaked with mud. Parents occasionally stopped by, not to help but to remind her of the games her actions had canceled. One day, Maria brought her daughter, Sophia, who looked at Karen and said, "You made me miss my first goal." Why? Karen had no answer, her silence louder than any excuse. By the time the field was restored, green and vibrant once more, the Owls' season was back on track. But Karen's reputation was in tatters. She withdrew from the HOA, her once commanding presence reduced to a cautionary tale whispered at the neighborhood barbecues. The field's reopening was a celebration. Kids ran across the new turf, their laughter echoing as parents hugged Mrs. Delgado, now a local hero. I watched Jamal score his first goal of the season, the crowd's cheers a testament to the community's resilience. Karen wasn't there. She'd declined the invitation, citing personal reasons. But her absence spoke volumes. Justice had been served, not just through the fine, but through the ascendant community. The sun was setting over the newly restored Oak Ridge soccer field, casting a golden glow across the vibrant green turf where the Owls were back in action, their cleats kicking up fresh sod as they chased the ball. The sprinkler system hummed quietly, repaired and reliable, a stark contrast to the chaos of weeks past. Karen's absence was as noticeable as her former presence had been overbearing. She'd become a ghost in the community she once ruled. The $150,000 fine had drained her savings, but the real cost was her pride, shattered by the weight of her own actions. The Owls' first game back was a triumph, not just for the kids, but for every parent, player, and neighbor who'd fought for this moment. Mrs. Delgado, now a quiet legend, stood on the sidelines, her eyes bright with pride as Jamal scored the winning goal. The crowd's roar a testament to their shared victory. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved? Or was the punishment too harsh? Share your thoughts. The field is open, just like our hearts.